is Tuesday morning, September the 24th. From WESH 2 in Central Florida, I'm meteorologist Eric Burris.
And in Savannah, Georgia, I'm WJCL 22 Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Nelson.
So, Jeremy, we knew last week that come Tuesday of this week, we have a tropical system to track, and that's exactly where we are right now. Potential tropical system number 9.
Yeah, long name, short answer. This will be named here soon, and then a hurricane eventually when it's in the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, those brighter colors you see, those are all the higher, colder cloud tops. So that is convection or thunderstorms developing. Remember, you need that first, then you start to get that little spin or circulation. And once we have a low and wind support tropical storm force, we will get a name.
That's right. So let's look at it in depth, and you can very clearly see those purplish colors, the pink colors there, clearly showing a developing system. And looking at just the last couple of minutes, the visible satellite presentation, showing what seems to me to be a closed off area of low pressure. I would suspect, Jeremy, you see Georgetown and Grand Cayman. If you look just due west of there, it looks like we've got that clear cut circulation on this minute by minute visible. I would think that at 11 o'clock today, we will get Tropical Storm Helene named. What do you think?
I think that's definitely a possibility. Even last night, there was a little spin there when you were looking at the infrared satellite. So the hurricane hunters, NOAA, doing different missions out there today. I know you're sort of the flight expert with some
Yeah,
of those missions.
sure.
Do you know when the next one is scheduled for them?
So they've actually got 2 missions in right now. Here, I'll pop that graphic up, and it's almost been kind of this simultaneous mission situation where they've been flying all night. They had a synoptic mission when I got to the office about 2, 3 o'clock this morning. Now they're running the low level recon, and you can see they found 999 millibars and they found 48-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So they're down low. They're scanning the skies, and both the NOAA aircraft, the P-130, I'm sorry, the P-3 Orion and the WC-130J aircraft are in there. So almost simultaneous, and I would suspect that what they're looking for is they're looking for that closed load to then upgrade and, of course, continue the process of strengthening, which I fully suspect to happen.
Yeah, and you and I have both been in these aircraft before, and information. They have a couple of pilots in there. They have their team in the back that doing the drop
Yeah.
sons into the storm, and then they have meteorologists sitting there getting that real-time information from the drop sons, and then they send that back to the National Hurricane Center. And then the end result is that data gets ingested into the model. So now we're
Right.
getting real-time information
Yeah.
of the atmosphere ingested into the model. So I would think especially by this afternoon and evening, hopefully any little shifts in the track
Right.
are going to be minimized.
And I would say that we've seen such subtle adjustments on the models. I mean, this is the forecast cone. The Hurricane Center has not needed to do much tweaking to this, which is a testament to the technology. It has not even technically formed, and we've had very subtle adjustments, which really is remarkable to me. It really is something else.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll see once we do have an actual area of low pressure if that's going to adjust any of the models because right now they've been doing sort of their best estimate of where the low would form. And as you can see there, that's from like Apalachicola to the Big Bend
Right.
area, and then it goes right into South Georgia. So those are the latest model data. Again, we've seen a couple outliers, maybe a bit more to the east of that, but overall, for the most part, a lot of models are a pretty good agreement.
They are. And we've got, there's a lot of questions, and I would suspect that this was going to be the case. A lot of people are asking, what the impacts are going to be in their area. And I think even though this is a very well forecast system, the struggle is going to be that without giving it just a little bit more time, it's really going to be a difficult call on exactly what particular locations are going to get. So, for example, here's the latest forecast cone, category 3 intensity Thursday afternoon, making landfall sometime Thursday, 5, 6, 7 p.m. as a Category 3 storm with winds of about 115 or so miles an hour in the Big Bend. Could be as far to the right as Pinellas County, Florida. Could be as far to the left as about Panama City Beach. But Jeremy, getting into any more specificity, I feel like we have to keep it on a bit of a broad stroke even still now.
Yeah, probably one of the most difficult things is to pick out, forecast, and then show people how much, maybe if there is rapid intensification. We don't know if that'll happen or not. We know it's going to strengthen, just how much. And then you start to get eye replacement cycles that happen when storms strengthen a lot. So there's a lot of variables in place, and some of those aren't the greatest to be indicated by any sort of forecast model. So right
Right.
now, I think the information that we have is pretty good. Likely Helene, maybe 11 a.m. for sure by 5 p.m. today. And then let's talk about the watches and maybe warnings that
Yeah.
are in place for coastal areas.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to advisories, the National Hurricane Center, working in conjunction with the local National Weather Service office, went ahead and issued a couple of advisories for much of my area, as a matter of fact. So in pink here, those are hurricane watches, the yellow hurricane warnings. And essentially, what that means is that in pink, those are areas that hurricane conditions are possible within the next 48 hours' time. In yellow, those are areas where tropical storm conditions are possible within the next 48 hours' time. That extends all the way up into the Big Bend, of course. You can kind of get an idea of where the National Hurricane Center suspects, Jeremy, that there will be hurricane conditions versus where they would suspect there would be tropical storm conditions.
And I think we'll see that pink shaded area there, the hurricane watch, possibly get bumped into maybe the southern tier counties in Georgia, because especially with the how fast this is moving, this is not going to be a super slow mover like we had with Debbie back in early August. So once landfall occurs, it's quickly going to scoot its way into Georgia, and we have the strong winds with it. You also have that forward motion that might be like 10 miles per hour or so. So even the forward motion, especially if you're on that northeastern or eastern quadrant, can enhance the winds a little bit. So
Right.
I would not be surprised to see some inland hurricane watches. And then for my coast, and this is probably going to be from Jacksonville all the way up to Charleston, later today, tropical storm watches.
Right, right. And that's just it's because it all operates off of a timeline, right? 48 hours is when those watches get triggered. Then you get into 36 hours. That's when warnings get triggered. And, to that point, also, the National Hurricane Center mentioned that they're probably going to need to start issuing storm surge advisories. Take a look at the latest storm surge forecast, okay? For example, the Big Bend area, 10 to 15-foot rise in water. That's the purple shades there. But notice in particular around Tampa Bay, from Florida's Sun Coast into Tampa Bay, a water rise of 5 to 8 feet. That is not counting on a direct hit at all. That's just Tampa's water rising. And doesn't that speak volumes to the vulnerability of Tampa Bay? If this had been a direct hit, or perhaps goes a little more to the right, I mean, there could be a significant event over in the Tampa Bay area.
And we've seen that often, even with these storms that stay off to the west of Tampa or Fort Myers. You get that water drawn in on like more of a southeasterly wind wrapping around the storm. So even though some locations may not be in the cone per se, or maybe on the edge of it, we can't stress enough. You will still see impacts. Now, there's a whole host of impacts. You can have winds. Eric showed there's like hurricane watches, tropical storm watches. So wind is part of it. Torrential rains that can lead to flooding very quickly, coastal flooding, the storm surge, and also something that we'll have to touch on a little bit is isolated tornado threat.
Right, right. Because the cone puts at least Central Florida into that right front quadrant. And so, because of that, anytime you find yourself on that right side of the cone, that's where there is that added bit of shear. And Jeremy, that's going to be your area as well, down the way just a little bit.
Yeah, it really looks like Thursday and Thursday night for my area.
Right. So, Thursday,